Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So one of the questions I get asked very frequently is how do you cook steak on the stove? So you don't want to use the grill, it's raining, whatever. So today we're going to learn how to cook steak on the stove, and we're also going to make a simple pan sauce to go with it. So we're going to start cooking our steaks. We're preheating our pan, and while we're doing this, we want to make sure our steaks are nice and dry. You can leave them out for a little bit. I like to pat them dry with a paper towel. Very simple. We don't want them to be wet because essentially what will happen is that will add water to our cooking, and we want to get a beautiful crust on our steaks. So after they're dry, I like to add a little oil on them, and then a nice generous sprinkle of salt and pepper, or your choice, of course, of steak seasoning. Run it on both sides, just pat it down, and use your other hand. Okay, so how do you know when the pan is hot enough? When you add your oil, it should shimmer. So once you add your oil, you can see that it's moving around. It kind of has a nice little shimmer going on. Get the tongs out. And then the next step to knowing that your pan is nice and hot is you hear that awesome sizzle when you put it down. So you hear that? That's the sign that the pan is ready for your meat. This is the hardest part for me. Do not fuss with your food. And I like to peek, I like to move things around, but you want to form a nice, beautiful crust. There's a couple reasons why we want that crust. One, it's going to allow the steak to be nice and juicy and tender on the inside, and stay moist. The other reason is because we're making a pan sauce. You're going to get caramelized bits on here. It's called the Maillard effect. And what happens is the sugars in the protein, when they are touched with fat and heat, they produce little caramelized bits of juices called fons. One of my teachers in culinary school used to call them little bits of gold. And so those fons are going to develop on the pan, and that's what we're going to use as part of our sauce. So it's going to add a lot of flavor. We're not going to move our steaks until they naturally release. That is a key way of knowing that your steaks are ready to be turned. So you'll see the colors will slightly change, and it'll go from a raw pink, and then you'll start to see it become more opaque as it's cooking along. And you want to maintain a good heat. You don't want it to be so high that you're burning that crust. You want to make sure that it's a nice, even brown that's forming. So if it's spotting and splattering a little bit, lower your heat a little so that it's not doing that. So our steaks are ready to be flipped over. And you can tell because they're not sticking, right? So when they turn over and they release and I'm not having to wrestle with it, I know I'm ready to turn it over. At this point, you have the ability to add a little flavor to it. So we're going to add a pat of butter, because that is flavor. And we're going to add some thyme. You can add your favorite herb to it, or no herb, and just continue with some butter. You can baste the steak with that butter. Just move it around, and it's going to really add a lot of flavor. I also added a garlic clove, just to give it a hint of that garlic flavor without overwhelming my fillets with it. So how do you know when your steaks are done? Of course you can use a thermometer, but I want to wash one more dish. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a hand technique. So if you take your index finger and your thumb and you pinch it together and push on this meaty part under your thumb, that's rare. Put your middle finger and your thumb together, that's medium rare. Put your ring finger and thumb together, that's medium. And then this one is well done. So just give your food a little tap. So this one is thinner, so it's been a little bit rarer than this one, which is perfect because, you know, not everybody in your family wants their steak cooked the same way. So we're gonna pull our steaks out. See all those beautiful brown bits that are in there? That's gonna help us make our sauce. I'm gonna pull out the clove of garlic. I don't need it. I'm gonna leave those herbs in. So let's start making our pan sauce. I'm gonna add some red onions. You can use shallots. You can use yellow onions if you like. And we're just gonna saute them up a little. We just want them to soften. They're gonna start releasing those wonderful fronds from the bottom. Next, we're gonna add wine. We're gonna make a red wine pan sauce. I never pour from the bottle of the wine because if the steam goes back into the bottle could burst and that would not be fun or pretty. So I always put my wine in a cup. Gonna add it in, and now we're gonna just scrape the bottom of our pan because we want to make sure those wonderful bits of gold are gonna be in our mouth and not stuck to the bottom of this pan. I like to flambe my pan sauce when I'm using alcohol. What it does is it cooks the alcohol off and it removes a little bit of that strong flavor. So I use a little long lighter to do it. If you have a gas stove, of course, you can tip it towards the flame. This is just a little safer. Might need to add a little bit more. So we're gonna add some more wine, and then we're gonna flambe it so that we can cook off some of that alcohol, the raw alcohol flavor. So let's turn up the heat a little bit. Woo! There we go. This is when you want to step back unless you want your eyebrows done for you. So we're gonna just let that continue to cook off. Takes a couple seconds. Okay, once the flames have died down, you can add a little bit of beef broth. I love these little flavor boosters or little demi-glace to it. So this one's beef. We're gonna add that in. We're gonna put a little salt and pepper on it. And if you think it's still flat, we can add a squeeze of acid. So it can be a little squeeze of lemon juice. It can be some vinegar, just a little dash, and it brings a little brightness to your final pan sauce. And this is perfect because by the time you're finished making your pan sauce, your steaks have rested enough that they're ready to be sliced and eaten. So your pan sauce has reduced enough when you can take a wooden spoon and put the sauce on it and then go like this. It's called napante, and it's coating the spoon, and that line is still visible. So that's when you know your sauce has reached a beautiful state and it's ready to be served with your steak. So let's slice up our steak. Oh, look at that. It's a perfect medium rare, and that's the way my husband Scott likes it. Let's pop it on a plate. Show that pink, and let's top it with our pan sauce. This red wine pan sauce is really rich, so you want to kind of be a little on the stingy side with it so it doesn't overpower our filet. And there you go, how to cook steak on the stove with a simple pan sauce.